My parents and I used to soar. Then I watched them fall. Since that day, I've tried to catch everyone. Now I know I can do more. For this city, for its people. Today on the Comic Book Report, Nightwing, Get Grayson by Tom Taylor. Stick around and check it out. Greetings all, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm back in the world of Tom Taylor's Nightwing, with today's volume, Nightwing, Get Grayson. And before we dive in, if you're interested in picking up your own copy or are interested in some other collected editions, I recommend you check out my channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. You can use my code, TheComicBookReport, at checkout to receive $2 off of your order today. If you use my affiliate code or link to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a great way to support the channel at no additional cost to you. Thank you for considering, now on with the show. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Tom Taylor and illustrated by Bruno Redondo. The issues in this volume were published by DC Comics beginning in 2021. The volume itself collects Nightwing issues 87 through 91 and Superman Son of Kal-El issue 9. And finally, this standard size hardcover comes in at 160 pages. At this time, I'd like to issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that standard size hardcover collection from DC Comics. Right from the top, I love the dust jacket design. I think it really does a great job capturing the detail from Redondo. The color palette is absolutely striking with your blues and purples and pinks and reds and white. It just jumps right off of the page and it gets me excited to go ahead and dive into the volume itself. So interestingly enough, DC is calling this the Volume 2 for the Tom Taylor Nightwing era, even though they did issue a second volume, the Nightwing Fear State collection, which was also by Tom Taylor. I think this is the Volume 2 because Fear State was essentially a tie-in to a Batman event, but this really continues the main narrative that Tom Taylor is trying to present. So if you're wondering, yes, I think that the Fear State edition is more optional than required reading. I honestly felt it was a great addition to this series, and I'm kind of baffled they didn't call it a Volume 2, but I think you could go straight from Leaping into the Light, the Volume 1, to this collection without feeling like you missed a beat should you choose that route. I did previously review the Leaping into the Light and the Fear State edition on this channel if you're interested in those reviews, and at any rate, here we are with Get Grayson. And now that we're finishing up our look at that dust jacket with the interior flaps, I can go ahead and transition to showing you the Under the Dust Jacket hardcover artwork itself, which is a really stunning reproduction of part of Nightwing issue 87, which was, I believe, an award-winning issue. It's known for being one continuous work of art. This hardcover, of course, is just a snapshot from that issue. It is, of course, a beautiful wraparound cover, very stylish, and gives you a nice taste of what's to come. You can see the character moving almost like a time-lapse effect where we get to see the flow of motion throughout a scene, and this is really how the comic flows, where you get an idea of the sense of where everyone's going and the action from left to right. I do love seeing the spread because, again, you get a snapshot of what I'm talking about and what I'll show you in a moment when we review that issue. But before we do, I do want to give a moment to examine the binding of the book itself. I'll show that in a moment as I get ready. I will say this is a standard size hardcover and the paper stock is a matte paper, which is about to be expected from a lot of these DC books, and the binding itself is a glued binding, not sewn, but still pretty well done. You can take a look here yourself and you can examine the images as we go. And now that we've completed that, I think it's finally time to jump into the book proper. So as we make our way into the Nightwing Volume 2 collection, Get Grayson, you'll be treated to some of the front matter, title pages, publication info, and then eventually, obviously, we get into the issues themselves. And as we begin, we will start the collection with that Nightwing 87 issue, which is that one single image across the entire comic book. I will skip a page or two just so you can get the full effect when you go to read it yourself, but you can see, even as I flip through what I'm talking about here, a really stunning issue. And as we make our way through, I just want to say it had been a minute since I've read some of these Nightwing comics and this Nightwing run. The last time I read a Nightwing book was back when Fear State came out, and I reviewed it on the channel, and I feel like I'm constantly behind with Nightwing. I know that this is such a celebrated run. It sounds like Tom Taylor's also going to be doing a Titan series, I believe, which I'm very ecstatic about as well. I think that's going to be a really logical extension to this whole Nightwing run as well. But I am a bit behind with it all. I knew that this was on my list for some time to check out. I'm so happy I finally dove back in, and the volume here is pretty fun. I think that the volume 1, Leaping into the Light, definitely established this run as something to look out for. Fear State felt like a really nice diversion from the central storyline, and I was really excited to jump back in with this proper Volume 2, Get Grayson, to really pick up on some of the narrative threads we were left with back in Volume 1. However, I almost feel like this volume feels like a bit of filler. We're treated to a couple really great stories, and yes, we pick up some of the narrative threads from the previous volume, like what Dick Grayson is doing to try to donate and build up Bloodhaven's infrastructure with all of his fortune, things like that. And because of all these things he's trying to do as Dick Grayson for the betterment of this community and this city, the criminal element of Bloodhaven is trying to put a hit out on Dick Grayson. That is ostensibly the plot line for this hardcover collection, but we also are treated to a really incredible crossover with Superman, the John Kent son of Superman version of Superman, and we get to really see this amazing dynamic between Nightwing and Superman, where that Superman kind of looks up to Dick Grayson Nightwing as kind of a mentor figure in the same way Nightwing looked up to his dad. Overall, outside of that Superman crossover event where it's just kind of its own separate thing, every issue is basically targeted around this Get Grayson plotline where Dick is trying to figure out who is trying to kill him versus Nightwing, and basically how to try to remove the hit from his head and basically try to bring those people to justice. And that's really what the storyline is about. Throughout the collection as well, we have some great appearances from members of the Teen Titans, primarily Wally West, the Flash. I really, really liked his appearance in this volume. We really get to see some of their friendship that between Wally West and Dick Grayson, and I really liked that. We also, of course, have Barbara Gordon Batgirl, and we know that Tom Taylor's really doing something with the relationship paradigm between those two again, which I love to see, but I think overall her role felt a little bit more secondary in this volume compared to some of his other superhero pals, which is fine, and it's fun, and it builds up a great secondary cast in this run, and while I did enjoy it, I just feel like overall it didn't have the exact same kind of momentum as Volume 1 for me. Like I said, I felt like there was a lot of setup, and I felt like the whole Dick Grayson is wanted kind of felt like a diversion from some of the central threat, which is kind of who's behind the scenes and that ultimate confrontation between Nightwing and these villains that are over in Bloodhaven. And I think I would have liked to see that. I think I partially expected to see that when I picked up this volume, so I was surprised to see that we kind of got some of these other adventures. I think basically I expected it to be, hey, this is when Nightwing fights the guy that's pulling the strings behind the scenes, and what I got instead was basically that guy's trying to kill him now. We have to deal with this first before we can get to some of those confrontations. So I'm really hoping to see in Volume 3 some of those conflicts come to a head, but I don't know how Tom Taylor's planning to pace this or make it more of a slow burn, and I think that I just have to adjust my pacing to match the overall narrative storytelling. And I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I think what we have here is a fantastic collection, and I really want to lead with that as well. This is a great book. The art by Redondo and the colorist is just absolutely stunning. I really don't think the art and the character models and the overall aesthetic of this book is really being replicated anywhere else on the shelves right now. It is really something to look out for. I also think that Dick Grayson's Nightwing is just being more and more elevated as far as the stature in the DC universe, and I think that that's a really good thing. He's such a unique character, and I think he has such a great personality, blending so many of the best elements of Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, and you really just see a lot of fun-loving adventures in his books, and I really enjoy that. Before we get too much further into this review, I did just want to take a second. If you're enjoying this review and you would love to watch other comic book reviews by me, along with fun list videos, community posts, and of course some shorts, please consider subscribing to my channel. I try to do a few videos a week. Would love to have you on board. Anyway, thank you for considering. Let's keep going. Going back to that central Get Grayson storyline, one kind of wrinkle in the storytelling that I didn't expect that I did really enjoy was that ultimately when he foils the person behind sort of this hit out on him, or the organization that's dispatching some of these assassins, he actually has a buddy, and that again is Wally West's Flash, and I didn't really expect that. There was kind of a buddy cop element to this, and I really did just like seeing the friendship that's explored there. You get a sense of this greater history between the two characters, the way they know each other's families or relationships, the way that they've just been through so much together and kind of seamlessly go back into fighting as a team and fighting together. I really enjoyed that, and I think as someone who's dabbled in the Teen Titans runs throughout the years and with some of these other comics, I know what they're referring to, but I think it's done in such a great and sort of general way that I think even if you're just picking up Nightwing for the first time, and if maybe you weren't aware of the friendship between the Flash and Nightwing, I think you could jump right in and understand the history as much as you need to really enjoy some of the work here. I think that this maybe also points to some of Tom Taylor's strength in this series so far, at least from what I see, is that these characters are so believable. I feel like every relationship they brought up feels absolutely organic, authentic, doesn't feel forced or fake. It feels very authentic to these characters and these voices. I know one of the things I really appreciated when I read Tom Taylor's Deceased a while back was that even in this insane scenario where the DC universe kind of becomes a zombie apocalypse scenario, the voices of the characters all felt true to themselves. I think that Tom Taylor is someone who has a really commanding grasp of who these characters are, what makes them shine, and he really just has a way of making them so believable and earnest. And I think that we see that absolutely in Nightwing. Even as they brought in parts of the Titans, even as we get to see John Kent's Superman, as we get to see a little bit more from Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson, there's just so much in here that to me screams believable, seems real. It makes the DC universe feel so lived in, and I loved that. I really think that Tom Taylor's approach to Nightwing feels very character first, and I think that that's largely why it's so successful. That, and of course the incredible pairing with the artist Bruno Redondo, more on the art in a second, but I really think that that character-driven base is really what makes this shine. Another reason I bring that up is to say that even though Dick Grayson did not live up to the expectation I had of kind of further pushing forward that narrative between Nightwing versus the arch villain of this run so far, I don't feel like this was a waste of time. Because again, Tom Taylor's leading by character first. So there's a level to me where it almost doesn't matter what they do in the pages of this narratively. It's about the journey and the exploration of these characters. And I can honestly say after reading Get Grayson that I have a better appreciation for the character of Nightwing, of course, but also Wally West's Flash, some members of the Titans, and certainly the John Kent Superman. And I think that that's a win for a book like this. I do think, again, the Barbara Gordon Nightwing romance and aspect of this was a bit underutilized compared to the first volume and even the Fear State volume, but she's still in it and still had some really good moments, but I would love to see some more exploration of that in future volumes. I have a feeling we're going to get it, and I might just have to be patient for now. Switching over from the narrative and character side to the art direction, I just have to say again, Bruno Redondo is doing some outstanding work. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's a kind of crispness to the art in this Nightwing run so far that is really refreshing. I feel like all of the environments are detailed enough without feeling too bogged down with just too much detail, but nothing feels sparse, everything feels lived in, and I don't even really know how he achieves this, but it's just really well done. I think all the character models also look absolutely distinctive and unique. And I think this volume also really shows the sense of motion that they can capture in some of the paneling and just some of the artwork, between seeing the movements of people like the Flash or having more of Nightwing's acrobatics explored in new and different ways, like when he jumps off the rooftop in the Superman crossover. There's just some really great scenes that are artfully and tactfully portrayed that I think are just really fun and lend itself to this character. I also think, of course, that beginning issue 87, where you have this just masterpiece, one one single image across an entire comic book, and the way it just flows so seamlessly, I'm just really amazed. I am blown away, and it sounds kind of basic, but I've just never really seen something like that done, and I know it's something in this run that's going to stand out and stand the test of time. I wasn't familiar personally with Bruno Redondo before this work on Nightwing, but after this run, he's absolutely someone I'm going to be looking out for in the future. I love how he depicts motion, I love how he does the set design, and the character works are all really great. The colorist as well has an amazing palette. I think that that's also part of why these images feels like they almost jump off the page. It's hard to even capture what I'm trying to articulate here for myself, but there's just something innately stylish about this run, and I don't know how else to say it. It just feels like the cool comic from the big two right now, and I get it. I get why there's such hype for it. I can't even totally put it into words, but there's something about this that's just great. And as much as it's fun to read these as these collections come out for the most part, I almost wish like this was a run I found years from now when it was all done and I got to see it maybe in an omnibus or a couple huge collections, because right now I just keep wanting to read this. And after those extras you saw a moment ago, I thought I'd just show you a picture of this collection with the other two they've released so far with the Tom Taylor run. Another exceedingly fun volume, really delighted I had a chance to pick this up. And now that we've made our way through, all that's left is to give Nightwing Volume 2 Get Grayson a grade. For another gorgeously illustrated chapter in the history of this incredible character, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Nightwing Volume 2 Get Grayson by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo a B. This was a really fun volume that had some incredible cameos from the Titans and some more solid character work for our lead hero. And while I was still hoping for a bit more narratively, especially with the progression of the main villains from this run, I was still really happy with the adventure. This was still an above average pickup for me, and a run I will still continue to watch closely. I personally can't wait for the subsequent volumes. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you've been reading Tom Taylor's Nightwing, if you're excited for the forthcoming Titans series, and just generally what you felt about this review. And that's going to do it today. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like and comment, and have a good one.